and all my desires, and the secret things I'll never tell. Lord, you know them well. Though I may be young, I see and understand that at times like sheep we go astray and things get out of hand.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the very first service of the Elisha Ministry, where our faith is rooted in God, in our divine creator. I am minister, student, teacher, servant, Andrea Grace, and thank you for joining me in our very first service. So today's service will be on worship and prayer. I'll start with a little welcome, but let's just jump right in and start with a little prayer. Let's join our hands. Heavenly One, your will brings us together in the presence of all that empower us as instruments of your will, as we bring light and love to all we come in contact with in our day. Please receive our prayers and help connect us with the eternal source as we fulfill our sacred duties. And may we be successful in our efforts today. Amen. And so, as I mentioned, this is our very first service. And so what has happened is that, so back in 2008, I opened up a natural healing center. And as the time went on, the work became very much centered around our divine essence and the relationship that our divine essence and ourselves have with the infinite creator. And so that the natural healing work actually became more as an extension or an instrument of ministry. But I didn't know it at the time. I didn't really have the language for it. And then at the end of 2021, it became more clear in my mind that what needed to happen was that the work needed to come under the umbrella of ministry, because it's actually what was happening, what I was doing. And so I slowly closed the business model, and then I founded and wrote the bylaws, the articles of association, and founded the ministry. So it's a natural healing ministry. I still have the word center in there, but it's a natural healing ministry. And so it's based on the premise that all healing is through him, is through our creator. He made us. It's in his mind in which we still exist. And so that's the highest intent. So when we're doing the work, when I'm doing the work, it's with the intent that God uses this opportunity, me as an instrument, as a facilitator, as a bridge, to create the conditions for his work to manifest. So for me, I was born into a Christian family, and then due to an early childhood tragedy where my sister suddenly, unexpectedly passed away. She was 7. In response to that, I heard my mum say in her grief that there must be no such thing as God for a child to die before her parent. And I was 10 and I overheard her. And so, my survival is dependent on my mom. So I opted to agree with her in that moment. But at the same time, what I couldn't unknow, I still was a pretty happy kid. I was still hyper aware and in awe of nature and nature's beauty. I was, excited to be here, and enjoy other people and feel connected to other people. And so, still, as I started to mature, I still was very much connected with the intelligence and the wisdom and the beauty and the design of all that this is and all that we are. And even though I could never articulate it at the time, but then what happened was when I was 11, just a year later, at the time there are Hare Krishnas in my hometown in Adelaide. So I happened to be watching them, and they had a display table, and on the table was a series of books. But when I got closer, I saw that actually it was copies of the same book, and it was the book Autobiography of a Yogi. And so the boy who was manning the table, he was not much older than me. He gave me a copy of the book, and at the time I was an avid reader, and so I devoured the book. And I see it in hindsight as one of God's early messages. So God finds his way to communicate us in all ways, through all things, and through all traditions. So this ministry is one that really focuses on the personal divine spark, and then helping support and nurture that personal, intimate relationship with the great creator, with source. And that can include personal angels and personal guides. Yeah, so my work and my background and my life path has included many traditions, but I just wanted to say that I was born into a Christian household from Christian ancestors, and I believe that there are no mistakes there. And so my path has been to actually then discover it, and then choose that for myself, to choose Christianity for myself. So while my foundations, my birthright foundations are Christian, and I would say that that's a foundational container, but the container also includes the Eastern traditions, the Eastern wisdoms, because they're my personal direct experience, and they're part of what my experiences with them have been instrumental and divinely inspired to arrive me here in this moment. Let's see. So I made a few notes just so that I could keep us on track with our service. So right now I'm just kind of in the welcome part of it, and just kind of giving a context for what this ministry is and who I am as the minister. It's been very organic. It's almost as though it's been a natural stepping into the vocation and the path that is here for me to step into, if I so choose, if my personal will chose it, which it has. And so yeah, for my part, me doing this service is just an expression of all of it, of all that came before. So as I said, part of the service includes the laying of hands, the energy and light touch, which comes from the Eastern traditions, but is included also in the Christian traditions of laying of hands. But the Eastern traditions kind of pick up or give us more information that can have a powerful impact on the biology directly, in my direct experience. And what I can't unknow is that Christ's light is eternal. It's ancient. It even goes beyond and before the story that we know of Christ's story of 2,000 years ago. But the Christos has always been here. And the word Christ is not a name. The word comes from Christos, which means anointment. And so it points to the anointed one. So if we had to say Christ is more a title than a name, and we can find that same pattern through the story of the Buddha as well, where we can see that Siddhartha, the prince, then through his natural life's journey, through his soul's mission, then became the Buddha essence. And so our church is considered, our ministry, our church is considered a free church. And what that means is that our structure has no top-down governing model. We follow the independence and the right to practice our faith freely, and that's in alignment with what this country, what both my countries, both Australia and the United States, was founded on. And so I just want to emphasize too that the work that I'm doing is not mine. I really consider myself a servant and a keen listener to his divine wisdom. And every day, my practice, my purpose, my intent, my prayer is to align and calibrate with his will, to align my will with his will. And so again, all healing comes from him. And whether in one of our sessions together, whether a miracle is available to us, that's really up to him, and it's up to you on a level that perhaps is not so very clear in the moment. And so in our ministry, we are focused and opting for the most sophisticated forms of healing support that are supporting our physical nature, and our physical natures, the environment in which we live. Nature's God, what we would call nature's God. And so then talking about the model more specifically as it's been changed, so now it's contribution based, and that feels right for me, that folks who are receiving a spiritual benefit through listening to this service or through any of the other meditations or self-help treatment videos, that the contribution is because you've received a benefit, and that you would like also others to receive the same kind of benefit. And so again, so it's contribution based, sometimes with our specific offerings like spiritual development classes or an actual one-on-one session. There might be a suggested amount and choices for amount, and again, there's freedom around that as well. So we're grateful for your contributions so that we can continue this good work. All right, so let's see. So let me go ahead and share with you the mission of our ministry so that it becomes crystal clear. So our mission is to provide a safe and supportive space for individuals seeking holistic healing and spiritual guidance, grounded in our faith in God. We believe that true healing comes from a connection to the divine and the recognition of the inherent divinity within each individual. We seek to honor the body, mind, and spirit connection through natural healing methods aligned with God's design for the human body. We strive to empower individuals to take an active role in their own healing process by providing guidance and support that's rooted in spiritual principles. And we aim to create an environment that fosters compassion, connection, and growth. Just as an aside, because it's clear that healing happens in community. Community is also a medicine, and that's why we offer the group classes. All right, let's focus on the word worship. When I looked up the etymology of worship, I saw that it comes from, let me just bring that up here. In the first record, according to Etymology Online, is that it's Old English from the word worth. That middle symbol is the TH, it's the phonological symbol for the th sound. And I'm assuming that the SC combination is a sh sound. It would sound like worth ship. Worth meaning dignity, distinction, glory, honor, renown. And so we can see how that word, worth, is the root for worthy. And ship means ship or quality. So it's of a distinctive quality, or the quality of dignity, the dignity ship, the honorship. And so again, this is the original use of it as a noun. And so today, worship means reverence. And apparently it was recorded being used as a verb to worship in the 1200s. And so when we think about worship and reverence, it's inherently tied into attention. We can ask ourselves, where do we place our attention? In what direction is the periscope of our attention facing? What occupies our mind? And does what occupies our attention bring us closer to peace and love and connection and truth? Or does it steal our peace, bring us further away from love, but deeper into fear and doubt and anxiety and grievance? And so for us, we can check to see how it lands in our bodies, because we know when something is aligned with truth and peace and love and bringing us closer to that, because it feels good. We're designed that way. And then we know when something is stealing our peace and taking us further away from love and deeper into fear, because it doesn't feel good, it feels bad. That's our incredibly intelligent design, because those negative feelings are just simply that alarm clock to tell us that our periscope of attention is not pointing towards truth, not pointing towards God, not pointing towards our own divine nature. So I think it's important to remember that God's communicating to us in all ways, in all things. And so it's then up to us how we interpret his ways and the things that are presented to us, especially when what is being presented to us is unwanted or unexpected. So how do we handle that? Do we take a literal view, which then can immediately evoke a victim type response inside of ourselves, or do we see it symbolically and ask, well, how is this for me actually? How is this communicating truth to me? How is this actually a recipe for peace? Even at face value, it doesn't seem like that. So, so at face value, where are we putting our attention? What is it? What are we revering? And so by extension, then where is that the fuel or the battery of our worship going? How are we using that fuel up? And so, for example, are you being distracted by? Is it the periscope of your attention on? Are you revering and worshiping I don't know, like a sports team, um, or a political party, a um, a Hollywood star, or a pop idol, your possessions. And so this then arrives me at a paragraph, a quote from John 2. And actually I'll bring up the whole thing, but the quote that I'm honing in on is, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Let's see the whole passage. Let me just bring that up. Let's start from 14. I have written unto you, fathers, because you know him which is from the beginning. I have written unto you, young men, because ye are strong, and the word of God abideth in you, and ye have overcome the evil one. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the vainglory of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passeth away, and the lust thereof. But he that doeth the will of God abideth forever. And so again, the world is symbolic. The world is just simply an effect of how energy is moving, and it's the effect of intent. You know, even the building that I'm in right now, I'm actually in Sydney, Australia right now. But even the building that I'm in right now, is the effect is manifested because somebody had an idea and made a plan, and then that plan was talked about and considered and changed and improved, or not, and then it was put into action and it was built. And so then we can ask ourselves, well, where do those inspired thoughts come from? Because we are not the thinker of our own thoughts. The thoughts come in, and we are the listener of those thoughts. And so when we continue, when we're in the habit of experiencing the world literally, it fast tracks us into a powerless state of grace, because we feel that we are a victim to life and its circumstances. Whereas if we adopt a symbolic point of view and ask us how these events, these happenings, these experiences are actually to help us realize our true nature, to help us realize what we're not, to help us dig our heels deeper, and to be convicted in who we are and what's important to us in our value system, then that is the path that is helping us to really align with our divine purpose and our divine mission. And it's less painful. We're not taking life so personally. And the other thing to consider about worship, the root is originally worth, which is where we get worthy from, the word worthy from. It's almost as though the integrity of our worship is directly tied to our self-worth. And so to worship with integrity, to be a master of where we put the periscope of our attention at any given moment, it ties into how much reverence do we have for ourselves and our own divine nature and our own divine purpose and our own soul's mission. Because if we were making that self-view the most important thing, then that positions us to be of such great service as we fulfill our divine purpose and our divine mission here. Yeah. So just in summary, the next part of the service will be talking about prayer. And so in regards to worship, our question for ourselves is, again, where What is it that I worship? What is it that holds my attention? Is it a distraction, or is it actually filling my eyes, filling my heart, filling my soul, filling my body with truth and love and peace and God's grace in the face of that which is chaotic, that which is unwanted, that which is unexpected? But this is the path of the self-mastery. And so it turns out that worship is an important word, an important concept to bring to the forefront of our mind, to position ourselves in and for a prayerful life. And again, this is the sole purpose of it, is for us to just simply be ourselves here, to be our true selves, to be all that we came here to be, the highest expression of what we came here to be. And we didn't come here to be fear-based. That's something to transcend. So to that, let's pass the basket. We'll take a little bit of a break. And so again, I just want to thank you for supporting the good work that we're doing here, that we've been doing for a long time, but now it's just under this new umbrella as a ministry, and that our work is to help to support our divine nature and to heal through our divine nature, which is a reflection of God's intelligence and wisdom. So contributions can be made by check, and you can make them out to Alila Ministry, and they can be sent to our bricks and mortar space, which is in Berkeley Heights, New Jersey. So that's 430 Springfield Avenue, Suite 209. Or you can do it virtually using Zelle, which is more like a direct deposit type platform, and still PayPal. All right. So thank you for that. And I'll just play some of the music that you heard as part of our little intermission here.
To be true to you, to live my life in purity as unto you, waiting for the day when I hear
All right, so part 2 of our Sunday service, our first ever Sunday service. So happy that you're joining me here. Okay, so the word pray is said to come from the word precari, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is a Latin word. And it's in the simplistic way, it means to ask. And one of the universal laws is ask and it is given. And so whatever we can possibly conceive within our own consciousness, because it is within the mind of the divine creator, it can be received. Whether it will be received is another thing, whether the conditions are right for it to be received, whether that's part of God's will for it to be received, not just your personal will. That's another matter altogether. All traditions, all spiritual traditions include a form of prayer. For my part, growing up in a Christian household and also having relatives who were Catholic, who were practicing a different denomination to ours. But I remember as a child kneeling beside our bed in our 90s to pray before hopping into bed and going to sleep. And then many years later, so, you know, after I kind of left all that, you know, I couldn't even, for many years, 20 years, I couldn't even say the word God. And I certainly couldn't say the word Jesus, which is, you know, part of the spell casting. It's part of the the power that trauma and fear can have, and also shame is coming to me this right now, and guilt. I'm getting that, there's, yeah. So anyway, so many years later, I learned that, I was having a chat with my dad. My dad actually recently passed away. He passed away at the end of February. Actually, it'll be a month ago, on the 24th. And he had shared with me that he prays before going to sleep still. And so I was so surprised to hear it. And so I asked him, well, so what do you pray on or for? Because I really was even then quite disconnected, because this would be maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And it's, I'm going to cut myself off here. It's just to say that, we, in the Eastern healing art tradition of Reiki, their prayer is included in that. And I've been resting there. I say prayer every time I facilitate a gentle light touch laying of hands session. And I use prayer before I will teach a spiritually minded, centered class. But somehow in my mind, I had disconnected the act of prayer, that my actions, my way of praying, I'd separated that from the Christian way of praying. Anyway, so I was really surprised to hear that my dad still prayed. And so I asked him, what do you pray for? And he said, well, I pray for you. And I was so taken aback. And he said, yeah, and I pray for your brothers, and I pray for my sisters, and I pray for my mum and dad, who have long since passed. I mean, it's moving me even to talk to you about it, because it was it was one of those moments that kind of brought clarity to me, and maybe gave me permission as well to go back to more of a traditional type of prayer from my family's tradition, from my ancestry, and from what I had been born into. And again, I just feel that there's no mistakes. We're born into the traditions that we're born into because it's important. And mine happens to be a Christian tradition. So, in Christianity, we bow our head, right? That's the position that we generally take, and we cross our hands, or we close the fingers around each other, here at the heart. And actually, the Eastern traditions give us more insight into the hand position, because whether our hands are kind of more in that steeple position, or if they're clasped, the thumb is still pointing at the lungs. It's pointing at the heart. And the Eastern traditions teach us that there are pathways, energy pathways, that run through the body in a certain kind of circuit. And that the energy pathway that governs the lung function, actually exits out of the thumb. And then we learn too that the energy pathway that governs the heart function runs out of the little finger. And so it's quite miraculous. We're closing a circuit. We're connecting with our breath, which is life, which is respiration. It's the receiving of the Spirit of God every time we breathe, which is why the breath is one of our most powerful and sophisticated, magnificent medicines. So we're closing that circuit, supporting that, amazing. And then the heart is being, well, we're greeting the world. We're bringing our inner heart out through the little finger. And so in the Eastern healing art tradition of Reiki, the word for this position is called gasho. And what's interesting about it is it's actually used more as a meditation position, as a centering and a meditation position. And the prayer position in the Reiki tradition, which again is Japanese, is to bring the thumb up to the bridge of the nose, or the gap right between the eyebrows, right at the bridge of the nose there. And this has a name in that tradition. It's called Reiji Ho. And Rei points to the infinite great spirit. So it's the same. And then Ho just simply means method, or the way, or the practice. And so there are many ways that we can pray. There's no right or wrong in it. It's just all to do with our intent. And so what is our intent? And so then for my part, there was, as I was kind of alluding to, that there was a long time when I didn't pray in the traditional way that I had been brought up to pray. And so I didn't really even understand what people meant, or even believe them maybe, when people said, oh, sending prayers, or I'll pray for you, I'll pray for him. But now what I realize is prayer is active. It's an active, it's the active intent to reach to the part of your soul's consciousness that is as close to God, that is God himself, and make that connection and communicate with the divine. Ages ago, maybe even a decade ago, I heard someone say that prayer is asking a question, and meditation is listening for the answer. And I bought that at the time, but actually I see prayer as the way to have a two-way dialogue, a two-way conversation through the intent. You might begin with an already written prayer, or a prayer that you've learned by heart, or maybe you've made up your own prayer. You might start that way as the kind of dialing in. And then from there, once you have kind of made that connection through your intent, through the blessing, through the gratitude, through your own wish, that then you can start to have an active dialogue. And I encourage that. I want to convey that it's possible, it's allowed, it's wanted to have this interactive exchange with God himself, who knows you, who loves you, and in whose mind you exist. You are not separate. We are not separate from that greater wisdom. It's always here. And again, it's communicating to us through, with, and by everything. It's just a matter of whether we're listening, how we're interpreting all that is, and also how we perceive or understand its function. So we can start to see how all that ever is happening is actually has a spiritual function, has a spiritual purpose. So again, so you consider prayer a way to just start to focus the periscope of your attention, and start to set the intention to connect and to be heard. And so you could just simply start with one like the one that we started our service with today. And so, I'll bring that up again. Okay. Heavenly One, your will brings us together in the presence of all that empower us as instruments of your will, as we bring light and love to all we come in contact with in our day. Please receive our prayers and help connect us with the eternal source as we fulfill our sacred duties and offer our unique gifts in service of you. May we be successful in our efforts today. Amen. It's so good, so simple. But then in recent years, what has happened, somehow my mind reaches for the Lord's Prayer. And it seems to be, as I'm going about my everyday life, it seems to be my go-to. And sometimes I wake up and it's going. Or if something something occurs in my everyday life that is a bit of a shock for me, that was unexpected or unwanted, and I have that initial contraction, then my mind reaches for the Lord's Prayer. And it's so rich because I feel like it gets the most important things for us, for us mere mortals. So, for example, it says, give us this day our daily bread. It reminds us and it asks for forgiveness. Please forgive us our trespasses. And it helps us to have the strength to see the occurrence, the grievance through God's eyes, with God's heart, so that we may forgive those who trespass against us. And then we implore, lead us not into temptation. And the Lord's Prayer also even includes the Eastern wisdoms, the wisdom that the Eastern ancients have been, teaching us as well, which is so above and so below. It even brings that in when it says on earth as it is in heaven. So let's listen. Let's listen to the Lord's Prayer. Actually, let me bring it up for you. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. I love it. I mean, it even, reminds us of eternity, of everlasting, forever and ever. Okay, good. So, and then you can always make up, if none of this resonates with you, if the prayer at the beginning of the service doesn't feel like a good match for you, doesn't feel right for you somehow, if the Lord's Prayer feels too Christian somehow, or doesn't speak to you, it's not, it doesn't feel like it's conveying the truth of your heart, then you can always make up your own. So we can often, start with a blessing. We can start our own with a gratitude. It could just simply be, a gratitude list. But yeah, so I thought I would just kind of make up one and just see what comes out. I don't know what's going to come yet, but let's see. Let's just go with it and see what comes out. And so I'm inviting the infinite great creator, our Father in heaven, who loves me and who knows me. I thank you for this gift of life, for the wonder, the beauty, the intelligence. And my wish, my prayer is that my mind be filled with your thoughts, that I know your thoughts as my own, that my voice becomes your voice, that my hands reach out to touch, to hold, to communicate as your hands, as you wish, as is your will, and that my legs place me where you need to be of divine service for what's needed here at this time. Thank you. Amen. To see what comes. All right, so we're coming to the end of our very first Sunday service. Thank you again for joining me. My goal, God willing, is that the next service will be an Easter service, and we'll explore Christ's message through his experience, and we'll also talk about what is evil in the Lord's Prayer. it mentions deliver us from evil. And then, as we talked about in John 2, you have overcome the evil one. Okay, great. And so just to finish up, we have some online programs coming. We have a regular meditation class that usually falls Eastern time on the third Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. Please check the calendar for the registration link. And then I am also facilitating a natural healing self-help to where you can use hands-on healing in an applied way for certain conditions, certain projects in the art of Jin Shin Jutsu. Imbalance and manifestations as conditions, as symptoms are considered projects. And the reason why we use that language is because projects are not only fun, but there are also many ways to approach a project. And so on the fourth Monday, also at 7 p.m. Eastern, I facilitate a natural healing. It includes meditation, but also self-help for particular projects. So you can join me for that. And then if you happen to be in the New Jersey area, I have a couple of in-person programs going on. If you're a local, Wednesday nights, I'm teaching a spiritual development class called Know Thyself. It's just a 4-session program. And that starts in April. Again, check the calendar. And then if looking ahead in June, if you wanted to save the date, if you're coming from a little bit further away, I'm also facilitating a spiritual retreat, meditation, prayer retreat called Calm Body, Quiet Mind. And that will be on Sunday, June the 2nd, and that's an all-day event. All right, so again, thank you for all that you are, for your unique divine magnificence. I'm grateful for the part you're playing. I'm grateful that we happen to be here on the planet at the same time, sharing this experience, bearing witness to it, and bringing our unique light here. And so I'm so grateful for that. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.
So I promise to be true to you, to live my life in purity as